All right, our regularly scheduled council meeting of October 4th is in session. Would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Clark.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Brinkman. Here. Councilmember Cernanik.
Present.
Councilmember Cole.
Here.
Councilmember Stallman.
Here.
Councilmember Taylor.
Present.
Councilmember Trujillo.
Here. Would you all rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Okay, you have the agenda in front of you. Are there any changes, updates, corrections? Seeing none, then the agenda is approved as submitted. Senator Newell. There you are.
I'm short, but I'm not that short.
I got my glasses on, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I don't know if you want me to join in comments before or after the...
I was going to read the resolution. Do you want to do anything, make a proclamation? You want to make any statements before or after?
I'd be happy to after.
Okay. All right. Well, this is a proclamation of the City of Littleton proclaiming the month of 2011 as Conflict Resolution Month. Whereas conflict resolution encompasses mediation, arbitration, facilitation, collaborative decision-making, and other responses to differences. And whereas the conflict resolution process empowers individuals, families, communities, organizations, and businesses to foster communication and devise solutions that are acceptable to the needs and interests of all parties involved. And whereas conflict resolution is taught and practiced by citizens in many school systems, universities, and graduate programs throughout Colorado and the world as a way of solving disputes. And whereas community-based programs fairly and equitably resolve neighborhood and community conflicts, thereby strengthening local relationships. And whereas professional associations of conflict mediators promote peaceful and creative resolutions to disputes. Now, therefore, I, Doug Clark, Mayor of the City of Littleton, do hereby proclaim October 2011 as Conflict Resolution Month in the City of Littleton, and encourage citizens to engage in conflict resolution, but only if they have conflicts, with family, friends, neighbors, and the community as a whole.
May I?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Very grateful that I get to be here this year at the same time as the proclamation. And I do want to say thank you for joining us again at the state level, both Governor Hickenlooper and the state legislature. For 3 years, I have been running Conflict Resolution Month in Colorado. For 3 years, it's passed, but this is the first year it's been unanimous. Believe it or not, some people vote against conflict resolution. Maybe those are some people who are working at the federal level now, but I do want to say that we have a goal in Colorado to be the most civil state in the union, and this contributes to that. Almost all of my cities and towns in my Senate district this year are joining in the efforts, and we are the only state in the country to have Conflict Resolution Month rather than Conflict Resolution Day. And that's because it takes longer than a day to teach people conflict resolution tools, to provide them with resources like mediators and facilitators who can avoid costly litigation, who can improve neighborhood and community relationships, have peace within the home and within the workplace. So very excited and grateful to you all for supporting this. And I am hoping that we all realize that even if we're 5-year-old or 65 years old, or you're a city council person, or you're in the state legislature, in the House, or in the workplace, that we all meet conflict. Every single one of us meets conflict at one time or another. But if there is a way to bridge relationships, and if there is a way to cement those peaceful ways as we're moving about our day, then let it be this month. Let us be more conscious and more aware this month. And perhaps even the people in the chambers tonight, if they go home and realize, I'm going to take a look at this in my personal life this year. And this is the perfect time for that. So I have a book to present to you, Mr. Mayor, and also the council members who would like. It's a book called Getting to Resolution, about turning conflict into collaboration. And don't we all need that sometimes? We also have a conflict resolution month sign that you can put in your office. Well, I guess you could put it in your car or home, but probably most appropriate for the office, as a proud supporter of Conflict Resolution Month. And then, as most of you know, I have town halls frequently, and this month the theme is conflict resolution, where we will have people like Robin McDonald, who is somewhere in the room, who is a constituent, who is a mediator. We have people who work Adelaide Blair, who works in the domestic relations arena with child protection, working with mediation. So we have those kinds of resources who are going to be available on that day. So I will leave those flyers for you in the public. So without further ado, I know you have plenty of business to do. Thank you.
And two things, Senator. One is, if anyone is a participant in the word jumble for the Denver Post today, the solution to today's, so if you haven't done it yet, you can close your ears, but the solution to today is resolution. So that was kind of a piece. And next year, the challenge for everyone is to integrate appreciative inquiry into creative problem solving as part of the day, the week, the month.
Love it. In fact, I use appreciative inquiry in my work in the workplace. Awesome tool. Thank you so much. May I get a picture?
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
All right. Next are minutes from the September 12th meeting. Any additions, corrections, changes? Seeing none, those are approved as submitted. Minutes of the meeting of September 13th.
On the 13th, I think that I requested to be put up on the whiteboard the library items that then we got to in the following night session. So since we have some whiteboard things in one of these, maybe we could just add those with council's permission to let the clerk do that.
And which page are you talking about?
Well, there's only on page 2, I guess. I mean, on the first set of minutes, they're added at the end. So wherever they would be added, comparable to the first set of minutes.
So, say, line 24?
Yeah.
Okay. Library. Wendy, does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other changes? Then those minutes are approved as modified. Minutes for September 14th.
On lines 9 and 10, it should say special session instead of regular. Because well, maybe it's regular, although we were doing budget, but I thought we considered the budget all special.
They are all special.
So that would be right, Wendy? Yeah, thank you. And then minor one on page 2, line 47, third word no instead of not. You do such a good job. I wouldn't want you to have a nut where you just need a no.
Okay. Anything else? And those minutes are approved as modified. September 20th.
On page 60, page 3, line 64, that line should start, the sentence should start, Mr. Kemp read a tribute to Manager Woods and insert Rich Krenning, Krening, president of Littleton Police Citizens Academy Alumni Association, presented. So it was Rich who did the presentation. That second presentation.
Okay, anything else?
Thank you.
I do.
Jim?
On page 10, line 279, instead of Steve Beckman, it should be Steve Eckman, E-C-K.
Yes. Anything else? And those minutes are approved with those changes. Now brings us to new city employees. And you want to introduce yourself, Mr. Petty?
We have several. Would you like me to?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, to introduce myself to all of you, my name is Michael Penny. I am your new city manager as of yesterday, so I'm in day 2 here. Brief background on myself. I grew up in Boulder and worked for the city of Boulder for several years, about 9 years. Went out to Uray for a couple years, which is where I'd grown up backpacking with my father. My dad's folks were from, I don't mean to be talking to the back over here, but my dad's folks were from Denver. My grandfather was in the oil business. Went to Uray for a couple years, tough place to raise a child, and so we landed in Frisco for the last 7.5 years. And I am proud and excited to be here. It's been a wonderful 2 days, 16 plus hours at this point, but it's been incredible. So very much look forward to working with all of you. So thank you. And Mayor and Council, we have one other new staff person to introduce to you, and that's Kenneth Elsner. Right there, he's our new police dispatcher, and originally from Phoenix, Arizona, served in the Marine Corps, and he is married and not sleeping. And that's because he has a 5-month-old son. So congratulations and welcome aboard. Thanks.
Welcome, Kenneth. Thank you for coming down to introduce yourself. You don't have to stay for the whole meeting, but you can if you want to. Mike, you do have to stay for the whole meeting. All right. We have no guest citizens, but we do have a public appearance. Dave Dietz is associate pastor of Littleton Baptist Church.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. We were privileged to be able to have on September 11th of this year, last month, a special memorial service at our church to honor those that are serving, both in law enforcement, also in fire, and the council as well. I think I wrote most of you, and I know some of you were able to come. We certainly appreciate that, and we were asked to come down and represent that, I don't know what it is, a certificate or plaque or something, whatever you want to call it, that we made for the city. And at that time, we honored the fire department. Appreciate Battalion Chief John Easton being able to come and bringing his crew of men. And I was able to meet the fire chief tonight. And so it's been a privilege to be able to do that. We also, at that time, were hoping to do a little something for the police as well. And with the many requests that they had, they weren't able to be there. And so we have something special for them as well this evening that we'll be presenting. And I believe Officer Brandt is here to represent them. And then we'll be representing the plaque to the City Council. So for the police department, this was very similar to what we did for the fire department, just as in recognition of outstanding dedication and personal sacrifice, and in memory of the 10th anniversary of the tragic events of September 11th, 2001. Littleton Baptist Church wishes to show their appreciation and gratitude to the Littleton Police Department, given on this day, September 11th, 2011. And we certainly do appreciate the police department and appreciate all that they do. And I want to make mention that Officer Brandt, Officer Coogan, and I don't remember the other one that came, Paul Creedon, Officer Creedon, stopped by the church that Monday, September 12th. And I think they scared the living daylights out of somebody that they met, not knowing why all three of these police officers were there. But I certainly want to make mention of that, want to appreciate them stopping by. So this is for the Littleton Police Department. Thank you. Then to the City Council, I just was going to read the same thing that we read that day on September 11th in our memorial service. It says this, 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 1 through 3 says this, "First of all, then, I urge that supplications, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgivings be made for all people, for kings and all who are in high positions, that we may lead a peaceful and quiet life, godly and dignified in every way. This is good, and it is pleasing in the sight of God, our Savior." And we went on to mention that it's our God-given duty to pray for you guys, especially, that serve on the City Council. I know some of you, your terms expire, and I'm not sure who's going to be reelected or not, but we want to keep you in our prayers and be able to uplift you and support you and encourage you. I think churches need to do that, and we certainly, as Littleton Baptist Church, want to make sure that we're doing our part to be more proactive in our community. And I think I mentioned Mayor Pro Tem Brinkman when she was there at the service that anything that we can do as a church, we'd love to be able to get involved and help out in any way, in any capacity. And so we certainly appreciate what you guys do and appreciate the service and the sacrifice of the City Council. And this is the certificate that was given as well to the City Council in recognition of leadership, commitment, and vision, and in memory of the 10th anniversary of the tragic events of September 11, 2001. Littleton Baptist Church wishes to show their appreciation and gratitude to the Littleton City Council, given on this day, September 11th, 2011. And we certainly appreciate the City Council and appreciate what you guys do here for the City of Littleton. That's all I have. I just want to mention this is Pastor Ross Davis that's sitting up here, and he is a senior pastor of our church, and so anything we can do, certainly let us know, and we appreciate what you guys do.
And since you're being recorded for all posterity, I think there's some little deets over here that you ought to at least wave to and acknowledge as well.
They are. Those are my three children, and they're doing well sitting there. This is a big deal for them to come to the City Council meeting, but Rebecca, Andrew, and Caleb, so they're excited as much as anybody to be here. So thank you again. We appreciate what you guys do, and please let us know if there's anything we can do as a church to be involved more in our community.
Thank you, Pastor. All right, that brings us to unscheduled public appearances, which is a time for anybody to come down and address us on any issue, ask any question, make any comments. I would like to note that there is a sign-up sheet for comments on the neighborhood plan, but it's not an actual public hearing, so now would be the time to come down and address us on the neighborhood plan. So, Paul? And I know Pam's on there, Marty and James. Certainly. Thank you.
This is fairly short, so my name is Paul Bingham. I've lived at 236 West Delaware Circle for 48 years and enjoyed most of that. I'd like to talk a little bit about this downtown plan. I hesitate to do that because it's been talked about a lot and it's been worked on an incredible amount of time. The Planning Commission has worked long and hard on this plan and I believe they did a fine job and should be commended for their work. I hesitate to say this, but I do have a little problem with the building heights associated with that as represented in the height plan shown on page 16 of Appendix D. And before I get into that map, I'd like to go through some discussion of the process and the thoughts that went into that whole thing. I guess I'll just read these instead of showing them up on the screen. That'll make it go faster. Downtown planning principles, page 12, small town character. Downtown will remain its small town character as defined by its pedestrian scale, absence of tall buildings, intact neighborhoods, historic structures, diverse land uses, and enjoyable pedestrian environment. Old downtown neighborhood, page 10. North of the Main Street District and west of Prince Street is the old downtown neighborhood. Most of the houses were here were built in the early 1900s or shortly after World War II. These are small cottages, late Victorian houses, and ranch-style houses all along tree-lined streets. Most have shallow front and backyards. It's rare to have a cohesive older neighborhood like this so close to a thriving main street. This neighborhood is stable and will retain its character, unquote. Next in there on page 13, land use and urban design goals. LU4, the existing character of downtown neighborhood should be preserved. And that goes on to a paragraph that's 4A and 4B. Getting into the results of the survey that the Planning Commission did, they went to a lot of work to put out a survey and got a fair response back. One of those results I'd like to point out is number 4, height, on page 46. A, limit heights to 3 stories. Don't build too high, unquote. The second one here, B, limit heights on the perimeter of the central area. And the third one I included just to show that I'm trying to be fair about this and include all of them. Heights limits are arbitrary. Downtown planning principles, page 12. Small town character. Downtown will retain its small town character as defined by its pedestrian scale, absence of tall buildings. I think I said that. Anyway, we get back here to the map. This map is page 16 from the plan, and it's a height map. It gives the heights allowed in various areas by colors, and I'd like to contrast that with a current zoning map.
Well, could you flip them around?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow, okay. Now, this is the crux of my, of what I've got to say. The planning map has heights delineated on here. The current zoning map, this whole area here is green. It's CA zoning. The height allowance in that area is 40 feet. That does not correspond to some of this over here. There are areas on this height map from the plan, proposed plan, that exceed that. And that's my concern. There are yellow areas that are 45 feet. There are other areas that are 50 feet. That's contrary to what was said and what's in this thing. It said we're not going to increase the heights of the current zoning in downtown. So that's my problem right there. Clearly, the height map on page 16 of Appendix D does not meet the goals set forth earlier in the proposed downtown plan as follows. The height map from the plan shows allowed building heights that exceed the current zoning, as shown from the current zoning map here in front of us. The green area, zone CA, is now limited to 40-foot heights. The proposed downtown plans allows areas within this zone to go to 45 feet. These are the yellow areas on the proposed height map. The green area, Zone CA, is now limited to 40-foot heights. The proposed downtown plan allows some areas within this zone to go to 50 feet. These are the pink areas. Please, some minor changes are required to correct these details before this plan is approved. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Paul. Pam?
I'm Pam Chadbourne. I'm a downtown resident. I live at the corner of Crestline and Nevada Streets. And thanks for letting me talk about the downtown plan tonight. And I'd like to welcome our new city manager. I'd like you to ratify the downtown plan with a change. And first, I want to thank everybody who worked so hard on this plan and took so much time. And I talked to a number of those when I was trying to compile this, so I've got some acknowledgments down there. Last and not least are my neighbors downtown. I walked around and I heard a lot of stories, and that's what's behind a lot of what I've got here. A recommendation is to ratify with one change. Please replace the height map on page 16 with a placeholder for a transition height map, and add that transition height map to the list of implementation actions on pages 23 to 25. There's 2 pages of many actions. That transition height map could be added there. And then my other recommendation is to track and share all of those implementation actions, integrate them, dejargonize them, present them to all of our communities for education and feedback, and then implement them into the city code. So Paul already showed the height map, and I just want to point out the height maximums are given in feet. They are hard to translate to stories. It's hard to understand the impact on our existing properties. The height blocks go from east to west, which pretty much terminates the western views in downtown. It's a pretty aggressive change from the current profile. In the two-story, it allows two-story differences adjacent to that 30-foot Old Town neighborhood, which we say we're trying to protect. But to be in a bowl surrounded by higher buildings is not a attractive or pleasant living environment. I've got a picture when you leave here and you go west. You see the west view from Berry and Prince. There's a tiny little house at the end of the street. There's a beautiful western view. And if you can imagine 2, 3, 4 stories all along there, we won't see that. We won't get the light either or the sunsets. So I want to point out that the rest of the plan is intended to be a descriptive, high-level, 30,000-foot guidance document, except for the height map. Height map is very specific. It doesn't seem to be from that same 30,000-foot descriptive place. If it was consistent, it would kind of give us stories and it'd say it intends to be more limited than current zoning allows. Instead, it's already unfinished zoning jargon. I don't mean that in a pejorative way, but there's the city engineering folks already do this a certain way. It's only to the middle of the sloped roof. Roof mechanicals are allowed above the limit. The city can always allow more. So it's a fairly aggressive height growth plan, and there's no comparison from now to proposed. And Paul already made the point that it actually exceeds the current zoning in some places, contrary to the stated intention. So I made an example of a transition height map. And to me, it's in stories. It keeps the western edge of the town 2 stories. Places a swath of 3 stories and then 4 stories on the east side. It preserves western views and light. It's higher to the east, slopes to the west, and it can always go higher later, but you can't go the other direction. So I totally agree that there has to be development and change downtown, and there will be higher density. Not arguing there. I think we all know that. But a transition plan would help us achieve that with the least impact on current residents and quality of life. You can introduce gaps. If you leave this development up to developers and they build high, there will be gaps between that, and those are unpleasant spots in the future. So let's not impose that on future city councils or the folks who live there now. Change the height map, and that will help take care of it. Let's see, so I thought I had a picture of my house. I guess I don't. So I also suggested that we have a process of continuous improvement. We haven't had a planning process for 30 years. Hope it becomes kind of a continuous, ongoing process. Let's learn from this cycle and improve so public engagement can be improved, and I've got suggestions there. So I'm just repeating what I'd like you to do. Please ratify it. We need something. But please move that height map. Just make it a placeholder, and let's have a transition map development process that'll take us a step at a time to preserve quality of life and property values downtown.
Thank you, Pam.
Thanks.
Question?
You have another copy in that, Pam?
Sure.
Have a copy.
Marty Bitts.
Okay, I'll get a copy from them.
Hi, I'm Marty Bitts, and I've lived in downtown Littleton for 40 years. And right over here on Prince Street, diagonally across from this property, 439. And a lot of exciting things have been happening in downtown Littleton, especially over the past, 5 years or so, where it's alive now with people, with businesses, with activity, with commercial interchange and stuff, and that's real exciting. And in looking at the plan, the things that I was interested in, besides the height map, was maintaining the small town part in the neighborhood that it's mentioned in the words, but not as put on the map itself, which shows a much smaller place over on Curtis. And traffic solutions, ever since the closing of, Ridge Road over the railroad, the traffic, which is not, always the businesses have wanted the traffic to come through downtown Littleton to stop. Well, now people come to Littleton as a destination. Just the same, Prince Street, people are coming down Prince Street to get home 2 to 3, 4 miles south. And so once again, I'd like to have people think about, is there some other way for people to get home without just using a thoroughfare down Prince Street? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marty. James?
Hi, I'm James Winfield. I live at 5521 South Nevada, just right over here, right next to I now have an adjacent field next to my house where the Nevada Place will go in within the next couple of years. So that's where I live. I've been there for 2 years with my wife and now with my son, who's about a year old. And I don't have much to add. Full-heartedly agree with the three who have spoken before me, Paul and Pam, and the additional speaker. So what I have to add is just, the reason that we moved to Littleton was because we enjoyed the small town feel that we felt the first time we came here a couple of years ago. I think it was for Western Welcome Week, and we were looking for a place to live as we were relocating to Denver. And I would also agree that the height plan, as currently presented, probably could use some work, and that I enjoy taking my son on walks throughout the neighborhoods here around downtown Littleton, and if they were all 4-story, 5-story buildings, it would not have the same feel. I'm a CPA. my dad's a landscape architect, works for the National Park Service, so I kind of draw from, I like the comment made earlier about commercial energy. I'm excited to see the changes in downtown Littleton, and the commercial side is very important to me as a business person. I also draw from my father's background as a landscape architect and as a 30-year employee of the National Park Service, that the importance of preserving historic things. As a kid, I read Little Britches, the books of Ralph Moody, and I was excited when I learned that when I moved here that, hey, this is where he lived, and so it's important to me to preserve the historic small town feel of downtown Littleton, and I believe, as Paul and Pam stated, that maybe a little more consideration could be made regarding this height plan in order to meet that goal. And as a resident, that's important to me. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. James? Anyone else? John?
Mr. Mayor, honorable members of the council, John Brackney, CEO of the South Metro Chamber, 2154 East Commons Avenue, which is a new location in the streets of South Glen in the city of Centennial. Mayor, congratulations and thank you for all of your service. Michael, welcome to our community. I come here tonight not as the CEO of the Chamber, but a long, rich history of one of your residents, Brian Vogt, the past president of the Chamber, who's a resident of Littleton, not as the CEO of the Chamber, but as a member of the Hopes of Littleton Historic Walking Tours. We've been volunteering our time for now 8 years. And yes, I think you know that thousands of little kids and some teenagers have been on our crazy tours.
Even some big kids.
And quite a few adults, Councilman. That's correct. And it's just two guys volunteering their time because we love Littleton. When I was a county commissioner, my very first action was to save that historic courthouse, the county courthouse, which is now your courthouse, and obviously in partnership with your city staff and leaders. But it is one of my proudest accomplishments to partner to save a bit of our history. Brian Vogt, for newcomers, Michael, was the first sheriff's son that his mother, Dorothy Vogt, the county treasurer, and his dad, the sheriff, decided not to live in that courthouse. So it wasn't a big surprise when these two guys got together to lead kids and adults around Littleton, understanding its crazy past and its current future. We love Littleton. So it's with our deep honor that within the last couple of weeks, we've decided to contribute our earnings from that. And so it's just volunteer work, and people contribute $2 for kids and $13 for adults. But with your council, Mayor, you told us to go chat with Charlie Bloston. So we did. And so a couple of weeks ago, we donated our $20,200 some odd dollars to the city of Littleton. That is now your money. Charlie plans on spending that. I believe it's in consultation with your Fine Arts Committee. Is it the Littleton Arts Committee? Fine Arts Committee. I think their intent is to build historic or artistic bike racks. And I'm not sure how many we can do. Maybe it's 8 or 10 or 12, 4. Oh, these are expensive bike racks, 9. And we have made that contribution with members from all around Metro Denver, and particularly Littleton. It's up for them to decide what kind of bike racks, and it's up for you to approve it, or Charlie. But we've just been really pleased that we've been able to contribute to the history of Littleton. Coming up, we're going to do a couple more tours this year, but that's all on the website. You can find them. We thank you for your leadership, the citizens of Littleton, the business people down here. One is represented, the owner of Romancing the Bean is here tonight. But on behalf of Brian Vogt and myself and the historic Haunts of Littleton Walking Tours, we thank you for allowing us to serve you.
Thank you, John, and thanks to Brian. And I'm just kind of hoping for the historic light bulbs of the courthouse.
John,
good.
Mayor, we don't wish to be political in any way. We understand I'm a historic preservationist myself, at some time, should the council or anyone on staff or the citizens wish to light that courthouse, like the Town Hall Arts Center and the Carnegie Library, the other two main historic cities. This is a prototype of lights that could go around the windows that wouldn't harm the building. That we're not donating it. This would be my wish. But at some point in the future, if you wish us to raise more money to have that be a beacon of commerce to drive business to Littleton, we will be at your service.
Thank you, John. So well put.
John, before you take off, I wanted to say, I don't think there's anybody here from Fine Arts Committee, but they are very excited about the contribution and really wanted to express their appreciation and thanks for your consideration, you and Brian. They're really, they're very keen to get the bike racks moving and have been spending a lot of energy and time downtown trying to find the right spots and the right designs.
Charlie told us they'd appreciate it, but it means a lot to come from you.
You bet.
We take time away from our families to contribute, and it means a lot to have you say that. Thank you, Council.
And having taken the tour myself with you and Brian and your other cohorts in spirit.
Ghouls.
Yes. I would commend the tour to those that are very recently new residents of the city.
We're soon to be.
And I will make a comment, even though you said it's on your website. Your tours of the next haunts of Littleton are on the 22nd at 7 and 9 p.m. and on the 28th at 8 p.m.
That's right.
And anybody's welcome to go and help contribute to the next project that John and Brian will come up with.
You're so kind, Councilman. Thank you for your support. Have a great evening.
Thank you, John. Anyone else? Peggy?
Yes, we all received this afternoon, an email, and I'd like to read it into the record,
Okay.
if that's all right. And Wendy, I'll give you a copy of this. It doesn't have a name on it. It does have the email address, so I'll say that. G, and I don't know even how this is parsed, but gnoise11@comcast.net, and it was addressed to all council members. Subject, height map, parking solutions, traffic solutions, noise, Santa Fe streetlights, Curtis. I'm writing this as a very concerned citizen in downtown Littleton. My husband and I have lived at 5559 South Curtis Street for over 20 years, and we have become very frustrated with the parking situation, lack of proper lighting, noise, and decrease in property values in recent years. We cannot make the meeting this evening, but wanted to relay a strong message of concern for our property and for our frustration regarding these issues. We've been asking for proper lighting on our street for many years and are truly concerned for the safety of people visiting our neighborhood and for ourselves. Also, this AM, I tried to park my vehicle in the only space available to me in front of my house, and I had to jockey cars around in order to park my car. Something needs to be done for the citizens of Littleton. We are truly being ignored. We love Littleton and we love our home, but if it continues to decrease our property value, and we continually have parking issues, we might consider leaving our beloved neighborhood. The height limitation is also an issue. We certainly do not want 3- or 4-story structures in the neighborhood, but need to take the time to analyze the engineering plan. The traffic is another serious issue that needs to be addressed. My husband and I are all for positive changes in Littleton, but as of late we have not seen too many. Thank you for your time, and I hope some resolutions can be made. So I'll give this to Wendy here.
Okay. All right, if there's no one else, then we move to the consent agenda. And consent agenda are items that can be adopted by simple motion and in theory are non-controversial. We'll see if that's true tonight. First item, 7A, is the annual appropriation ordinance. If you could read that by title, please.
An ordinance to be known as the annual appropriation bill for all municipal purposes of the City of Littleton, counties of Arapahoe, Douglas, and Jefferson, State of Colorado for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2012 and ending December 31, 2012.
This is the first reading. Second reading and public hearing will be October 18th. This is basically the budget that we're approving. Council directed staff to bring us back a balanced budget, which means that the staff estimates the revenue that they think the city will take in 2012, and the expenditures came in very close to that. We are overspending expenditures by revenues, I believe, by $259 out of $46 million. No?
It's the other way.
It's the other way. Oh, well, it's even better news. So expenditures are under revenues by $8,000 out of $46 million. So even better than what I thought. Item 7B is an ordinance on first reading approving the 2011 mill levy.
An ordinance establishing the tax levy of 6.662 mills to defray the costs of municipal government and pay debt services of the City of Littleton, counties of Arapahoe, Douglas, and Jefferson, State of Colorado for the city's fiscal year beginning January 1, 2012 and ending December 31, 2012.
And this sets the mill levy to 6.662 mills, which is the same it's been since 1992, and a smoking good deal, actually. Item 7C.
An ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, amending provisions of the city code regarding wastewater fees.
This sets the sanitary sewer utility charges, something that's we've been getting lots of comments on recently. There is a 2% increase for 2012 reflected in this ordinance. Item 7D is a motion for parks, and this motion would approve naming 5 parks. The property formerly known as Ackerman would become the West Bellevue Trailhead. The Oxbow becomes Oxbow Point. Lee Gulch is the Lee Gulch Overlook. Enzer property that we purchased becomes the South Platte Park, and the Big Dry Creek Trailhead by Littleton High School is the, strangely enough, Big Dry Creek Trailhead.
East Trailhead.
I'm sorry, Big Dry Creek East Trailhead, as opposed to the west.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's because we may have a west the next time this comes before
I
you.
agree completely. Item 7E is a motion to approve the North Central All Hazards Regional Health and Medical Memorandum of Understanding. And anytime there's a disaster or emergency situation, the resources of any one municipality or governmental entity can be overwhelmed. This is a memorandum of understanding for cooperation between various entities in the Colorado Front Range area, and this is an update of an existing memorandum. So, Council wants a motion, please.
I move we approve consent agenda items 7A through 7E.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries.
Okay. And that brings us to item 9A, which is a resolution to ratify the downtown neighborhood plan. If you could read that by title, please.
Resolution of the City Council of the City of Littleton, Colorado, ratifying the downtown neighborhood plan as an amendment to the comprehensive plan.
And that's what everybody was talking about earlier. Linda, did you want to come and make a short presentation? Or Glenn, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Actually, I just wanted to introduce Linda Newfinke, your chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission, is going to do a brief presentation on the odyssey that we know as the Downtown Neighborhood Plan. But we also have other commissioners here. Our Chair Pro Tem, Kurt Coronado, is here. And I'm sorry, Craig. Sorry about that. Commissioner Steve Bockenstedt sitting next to him. Our Commissioner Dave Metcalf back here, and I thought I saw Kurt up here, Kurt Samuelson, our other commissioner. So I think I have them all. So with that, I'll sit down and turn it over to Linda.
And just a reminder, October is Conflict Resolution Month.
How appropriate.
Yeah, if I can get this. Here we go. So I thought. There we go. So I just wanted to mention and kind of remind you of the original charge, which is to develop a neighborhood plan for the downtown area, which we did, and we think the plan is both visionary and pragmatic, and it also reflects the community's desire and input. It is also flexible and encourages regular updates. You asked us to review and analyze the existing comprehensive plan, and we did that, and we did a line-by-line analysis to identify all of those obsolete sections, opportunities for improvement, and relevance to today. You also asked us to review the boundaries of the central area. We extensively debated the boundaries, and we also obtained public input into developing the map. You also asked us to evaluate zoning, including the TIS, the R5, and the central area. And we reviewed development scenarios and case studies, and we extensively analyzed the R5 area for the boundaries, for the land use, for potential assemblages, and development and redevelopment of lots, and also potential rezoning. We also looked at accessory dwelling units.
Linda, could you please explain the TIS to your audience out there?
That's the transit impact zone, and it's is it half a mile? It's a half a mile that's around the light rail station. So, and those boundaries were drawn kind of arbitrarily, and we looked and extensively debated that. So we also assessed the existing zoning in the downtown area, and we looked at a number of alternative zonings. We definitely looked at the heights of existing buildings. We did a street-by-street analysis, and we looked at height and density from areas around the Denver metro area. So the plan recommends height limits. We recommend new height limits for the central area, the B2 and the I2. And the existing conditions of the central area, B2 and the I2, allows for the ability to request increased heights with no set limits. So we're putting some limits onto the central area, the B2 and the I2. And the central area, you can, with the PDO, there's really no set limit. And these lower heights will provide additional predictability for development. And again, our goal with all this is to maintain the historic nature of the downtown and transition to a mixed use and institutional uses such as Arapahoe County and ACC. We also looked at density, setbacks, and stepbacks. And you also asked us to address parking, open space, circulation, density, economic development, and sustainability. So we have in the plan sections for open space, circulation, including parking, economic development, sustainability, and then density is included in the land use section. You ask us to do extensive public outreach, to conduct surveys, to identify stakeholders, and hold public meetings. So we distributed about 27,000 surveys with an excellent response rate. We had a well-attended open house at Hudson Gardens. We also held focus group meetings with downtown merchants, property owners, retailers, and R5 residents. We had personal meetings and phone calls with stakeholders in the downtown area. And then we also visited other communities in this area, such as Arvada and Golden. And this is an example, this slide's an example of all the participants that we identified within the process. So you notice that we have the town hall, we've got different education facilities. So this was, the intent was to really make sure that we were inclusive of all, anybody who has anything to do with the downtown area. After we finished the plan, we solicited some input on the proposed plan. So we went to the Historic Preservation Board, and Glenn went to the Downtown City Council of Downtown Merchants breakfast meeting to encourage them to provide comment. And then Dennis and I went to the Hoodlum, the Historic Downtown Littleton Merchants Association, to also encourage them to submit comments. So in the public process, we had a comment area on the web so that we can get people's feedback immediately. We encouraged submitting emails. We sent letters out to all of those stakeholders that you saw in the previous slide. Then we also solicited comments from ex-commissioners and others. So as you know, we held a public hearing on September 22nd, and those comments are included in your packet. And a summary that is 36 citizens attended the public hearing. We had generally positive comments. The Historic Preservation Board endorsed the plan. City staff provided positive comments, Chris Gibbons and Charlie Boston. And we also received agency responses such as Tri-County Health and Littleton Housing Authority. So we wanted to acknowledge some of the participants, and I know you can't see that very well, but we'd like to acknowledge the City Council, the Planning Commission, the former members of the Planning Commission, city staff, and consultants for their participation in the process. And most of all, we wanted to do a sincere thanks to all the citizens who participated in the process of building this comp plan. So we are ready to hear your questions, comments, concerns, anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Questions for Linda? Okay. Jim.
One of the things that I'm going to ask before we finish this topic tonight is that the Planning Commission spent about 3.5 years, thereabouts, working on this project. We received this last Thursday evening, and I think it's absolutely unfair to us to try to evaluate what you've spent 3.5 years coming up with in 5 days. So I'm going to ask tonight that we delay a vote on this for 2 weeks, and we do it at our next regular meeting on the 18th of October. That said, in my conversation with you earlier tonight, I think you said you would like to have concerns that we may want to have addressed between now and then. You've got a Planning Commission meeting. There's also a possibility that we can have the Planning Commission meet with us at our study session next Tuesday night and talk about some of these things so we all get to hear what each other's got to say about the plan. So that said, where do you want to start?
Very beginning.
At the very beginning. I will give you some of my comments, things I would like to have most concerned about. I've got a lot of concerns about what I read in here. And one of the things you had in your presentation was how flexible you thought the plan was. I looked at it, Linda, as absolutely not flexible. And so it's a perception between what you have presented and what I'm reading into it, and I'm a very literal reader. I read exactly the black and white print that's there, and I come up with it being fairly unflexible in this plan, and that's what bothers me. I think some city, that we're dealing right now with a comp plan that was developed 30 years ago. 30 years from now, it's going to be a different council sitting up here, and they got to deal with what we're going to be adopting now. And I think that the flexibility is key and foremost in my mind that it is not going to tie the hands of future city councils to do what may come to be a very good plan before us that we're not allowed to do because of inflexibility that I see in this document. I will start with I can list this by page and number, if that would be most helpful. Page 14, this is the land use, 1C, and it's establishing sunset provisions. And I think that that's a little harsh. I think the council can make that determination on a project-by-project basis, that when it's approved, we can determine whether it's going to be sunsetted or not. If you had something that had happened in 2008, and then looking at what the economy happened in 2009 and 2010, something might not get done because of circumstances beyond a developer's control. I don't want to see an automatic sunset in there. I think that's unfair to where we may want to go in the future. Item 14, still on page 14, LU number 4, under A. Again, it talks about small scale and primary uses of being medical and dental offices. I think each application that would come before us ought to be judged on its own merits and its impacts it would have on the community. In other words, let's don't prejudge what those are going to be, but having a CPA office in there may have a lot less impact on the community than a medical office. Having a lawyer in there might have a lot more less impact than a dental office might have. So I think that when you put limits of allowing only 2 uses in there, you are doing a harm to the community as a whole and not allowing other uses that may come before us that would not be as harmful to the community as what you are having in there. Down on 4C, employee and or customer parking on residentially zoned lots that are located adjacent to the CA zone district. I see that as having a huge impact on the downtown businesses, and I'm going to have somebody give me a better explanation than what I'm understanding of what this 4C says in order to understand what that happens to be. Moving to the next page on 15, LU 7A, it talks about the rules and regulations and eliminating barriers to achieving what you want to do, and it goes back to a previous one which talks about zoning. And I guess I want to know how this is going to differ from the CA zone. The CA zone has a floor area ratio criteria to it, and I'm trying to figure how these are going to mesh and by eliminating the CA zone and coming up with other zoning categories. In LU 8B, this talks about pedestrian access between ACC and Main Street. Many years ago, the decision was made by some city council to close Nevada Street, and they put a pedestrian bridge across Littles Creek, and it is closed to automobile traffic. It was determined at that time that that would be the pedestrian access between ACC and the downtown area. Your plan is calling it to move it to Curtis Street, which is a two-way street, traffic going up and down all the time. Not as safe a street to walk on as Nevada, which is not a through street. So I guess I'm going to ask for an explanation of why you went to Curtis instead of keeping it on Nevada. On page 17, on 13B, this talks about something that's not even in the football area. The football area, as you described it, is the downtown plan. And 13B talks about something outside of it. That belongs in another plan you would do, but not, in my mind, part of the downtown plan. It talks about something on the outside borders. Page 19. This is 4 III, and it has to do with parking reductions in the table. There's where I see a lack of flexibility allowed for some future council to determine a project that would be based on merit and not upon a predetermined criteria. I think, Doug, that's the more substantial of my comments. As you can see by my notes, I've got comments on almost lots of other things. And
I guess I was looking at that.
so aren't you thankful I didn't talk about all of them?
All right. Anybody else want to?
On this 4II on the parking reduction table in a zoning code that reflects parking requirements and possible reductions. At the present time, with the historical preservation group, with a incentive of 50% reduction in parking, that's kind of a moot point, wouldn't you say?
Well, that's a good question. Okay.
I mean, somebody goes in and gets a historical preservation, gets on the historical preservation, immediately one of their incentives is that you will reduce your parking by 50%. Somebody that has 2 parking spaces, 50% of nothing is nothing.
Actually, it's even more extreme than that. I believe it's 50% of the parking requirements for new additions, but it eliminates parking requirements for the existing square footage, if I've got that right. Dennis is shaking his head. So it's.
But that is, my feeling is that particular incentive is going to eventually cause downtown Littleton to die on the vine because of the fact that people will drive to Littleton and they'll walk about 8 blocks the first time, but they're not going to do it a second time. And unless we, as a council, decide to assist somebody to provide parking in the Littleton downtown area, I think we're going to be in a pickle for a long time. But that's what's going to have to happen.
Okay.
And I think that's why we want this discussion to go on with the Planning Commission. They said they did some tours, and I think part of the places they toured are going to answer the very question that you're bringing up. But I think we need to hear that from them.
Anything else, Jose? Bruce?
You got another one?
I'm done.
Oh, okay. Linda, one of the comments in the summary comment document talked about an urban center designation, which is, I think, a Dr. Cog terminology. I thought I saw that in the plan itself. Is it in the plan?
It is not in the plan.
It is not, so I just-
It's in the resolution because it was an amendment to the plan.
Ah, okay, maybe that's what I was thinking. Okay. So I guess I'd like to understand what the advantages, pros and cons, arguments, discussions might be concerning that issue as it pertains to the plan. If it's in the resolution as an amendment, you know, what do you guys think? And I know there's planning dollars that are available and a lot of the content in here from the perspective of your ongoing what's the page in here? Here, this thing. The implementation strategy pages would seem to me to be in need of incremental funding to sort of make sure some of this stuff is pursued, tracked, communicated, so forth and so on. On, let me see here. You talked about the height scale. On page 18, point CN4E talks about, and this is, I guess, just one example of some questions that sort of came to mind. Improved connections from light rail station to Main Street and ACC. I guess I'd like to understand what the thinking, you know, what are you guys thinking? Obviously, I think Jim's correct. This is probably a discussion to have with the entire Planning Commission so we get your guys' thought process. I'm not sure what that is, if it's the circulator bus issue or so forth and so on.
Okay.
The page 19, section, or point ED 2B, the concept of continuing to use cutting-edge technologies to promote businesses. I guess I'm going to want to hear a little bit more about that as well. What we do with economic gardening certainly is a program to assist businesses that's extremely worthwhile. I'm not sure I'd call it cutting-edge technology. It's essentially database manipulation that's pretty straightforward. Cutting-edge technology to me would be stuff like these QR codes that you can scan with your smartphone to get information about certain things, websites pull up, so forth and so on. So either it's the word continue maybe needs to be changed, or the concept of cutting edge needs to be changed in deference to some sort of application of technology that would assist business where applicable or appropriate. I mean, the 3D or ED3B, reviewing the regulations and processes for their impact on providing attractive business environment. Yeah, excellent point. I think that's something that transcends the downtown area. The scope of that issue is almost so broad as to be beyond what we're dealing with here, just in terms of the downtown neighborhood plan. I think it's, absolutely couldn't agree more. I just think it's an overarching issue versus just this, so calling it out is fine. But how do we do that? Let me see. Well, let me stop there. I think you get the drift. So I'll go ahead. I'll defer to someone else.
Deb?
You guys are making me write fast.
I'm also taking notes, so I'll try and type this up and send it out.
Okay.
Oh, Wendy's going to type it up, too.
Notes as well.
Okay. All right, they're taking notes as well. Maybe not typing.
Page 14, LU4A. I guess I have some of the same concern that Jim has. It's my understanding that that's current code or current zoning, the medical and dental offices, and then the no other land uses will be allowed. I guess I'm just wondering why there's not some allowance for, an architect in an office or a little ad agency or something like that, some of those same businesses that may even have less impact on a neighborhood than a medical office would have. I also marked the sunset thing on LU 1C, same page. It's not so much that I have a concern with that happening. I would just like to see that a lot more well defined in terms of what would trigger that. What would the sunset be? Is it going to be general? Is it going to be conditional? Is it going to be specific to types of business? I don't know. But that just seemed to me that might open up some real issues. On LU5, page 15, what is an amenity enhancement? I guess I'm just not sure what that is. LU-5A. Okay, so LU12A, streets, downtown street and pedestrian lighting plan. There's nothing mentioned in there regarding safety. I think that should always be a key consideration whenever there's any kind of lighting. How does it provide for the necessary safety, particularly in a downtown area where you have the higher density? Also looking for a little bit of an explanation on LU 13A. Plan new developments immediately adjacent to downtown gateways so that they improve connections to downtown, function as part of a gateway to downtown. follow the same design standards and are consistent with the downtown plan. I would just like to hear kind of where you guys were thinking of what your thoughts were on that and how that plays in. That may be a little bit of what Jim was saying too, that it kind of goes outside of the CA plan. Then the other one on LU 14, cultural amenities such as art galleries and the Town Hall Art Center. I guess I would suggest removing art galleries. Those are typically a private business. And that concerns me a little bit. Town Hall Arts is city biz of sorts. So that, I guess that's something I was a little concerned about. The other thing is, and we haven't gotten to the bike and ped plan, and I know that's coming, but I would like to see something addressed perhaps regarding, and it may have to wait until that plan comes out and there's some level of integration into this, because I would imagine that there's going to need to be a little bit of marrying of the two. But I've got a concern regarding the, bikes on sidewalks. Our sidewalks downtown are full. There's trees and planters and sandwich boards and benches and people.
Bike racks.
Occasionally you'll see a bike rack. Mostly you'll see bikes tied to poles, but that also creates an obstacle.
We're going to see 9 new ones.
Well, indeed. 4.
4?
But, I think, and like I said, it may be more of something that when the bike and ped plan comes out and we figure out how all that works together. I'm almost done. You talk a little bit about the open space on page 21 on P2. Development along park edges should encourage public interaction. I guess I'm more interested in where you guys think there could be additional open space or open space opportunities, adding some amenities to Geneva Park. I can understand that. That's a larger area, but there's not large stretches of open space downtown, and I don't know that there's ever going to be any additional because of the current buildup. And I don't know that there needs to be, but I'm not sure. Talking about it in here, it seems like that you guys have some ideas there, and I just don't see those flushed. P4, just questions on, promote and improve connections to Littles Creek Trail. Okay. I would say improve and then promote. I think, improve, that needs to be detailed probably a little more, because I think that can get even more specific. Again, P4B, look for opportunities to add park space along Littles Creek. I'd like to see what you guys are thinking about that. Then at P4C, look for opportunities to enhance connections to South Platte. In particular, I'm looking at the South Platte connection there. So I'd like to hear, because I appreciate that. I think that some of those are great ideas. Putting them in a comp plan as an idea without having some sort of meat to grab onto and make it a reality. I mean, is there a reality? Is there a reality of connecting South Platte Park in a different way than Littles Creek to downtown? But to put it in a comp plan without a basis in reality, I would just want to hear what you guys have to say. And then my only other comment was under implementation summary, where you say every 10 years the plan should be revised in total to ensure that it's current. Well, I agree with that. I guess I would like to kind of vet out a little bit the 10-year number. and maybe leave that a little bit more open, maybe no less than 10 years or something like that, so that it doesn't, as Jim says, when you have a different council out here, it doesn't, oh, it's the 10-year time to look at the comp plan. Maybe 10 years isn't often enough, or something, maybe broaden that scope a little bit, but yet also have it.
Or too frequent.
Or too frequent, yeah, because we're into the 30-year one. That's all I had.
Phil?
Mine are going to be probably more of a framing and probably more forest issues than wordsmithing on individual items, Linda.
Okay.
Getting back to Jim's earlier comment, which is we've only had a little bit of time with this, and it's pretty easy to jump in at the trees. Mine is probably more at the forest of. You've heard comments about height. You've heard comments about parking. I would ask to be brought along with regard to the Planning Commission's thinking around that to understand better where you're coming from on this to reach some of the conclusions that you have. There's, I like the section on framework in understanding that, because I know the details are there, and I want to really make sure we have a good understanding, or I would like to have a good understanding of the framework, so that what this is a visioning, a framing that will allow for thoughtful development as well as providing some levels of protection. When we're dealing with land use at the city, that's really what we're trying to do, is make sure we can handle both sides of that. And the part, and maybe I missed it somewhere, but at the public hearing in September, at the end of September, there was a timeline and a listing of a lot of implementation details with primary responsibilities. And it's getting back into that, so that my recollection is there's a lot of CC items. Now, I don't think that's community college. I think it's city council, and want to make sure we understand that, and would even appreciate if we can actually, if things are going to get done, it probably needs to be a little more focused, and recognize when someone says CC, you have 7 folks up here that nothing really happens unless you get 4 votes in a direction. So that's always a dangerous piece, just as you have that same kind of juggling act chairing the Planning Commission. So Michael has a little more authority when he talks to staff in getting those to come through. But it's taking us along, and don't presume that we've had all of the journey and we've been there lockstep in watching all of that. I appreciate there's been a lot of thoughtful work, and would ask you to kind of bring us along. Otherwise, I could also start going through individual items as well, but I want to know what your thinking is.
Peggy?
So first, I think you guys did a pretty darn good job. That doesn't mean that I don't have my trees comment. But first, for the forest, the height issues, I have those same questions about the height issues. The bicycle parking, a smaller thing. Sunscape for solar and passive heating. I have issues about how things might interact to facilitate or interfere with that, because that's part of the sustainability piece, I think. And viewscapes. So those are the larger issues, and then I have several picky tree comments on various pages. So starting on page 12, in the item with, public realm, where it talks about encouraging walking, pedestrian-friendly, encourage walking, I hope we can emphasize year-round, because sometimes we have a bit of an issue with that when things get exciting in the winter. And I know we have bad winter stuff and we have some temporary, but I'd like to encourage year-round pedestrian things. On page 13, LU, last bullet, a stable business environment. Stable could mean we have almost no business environment. It could be stable, but not all that darn good. So I think maybe a vibrant or healthy business environment, whatever word might seem to work better there. Giving Linda a chance to write there. Page 14. With LU2A, and I had next to that one the how, the why, there isn't enough parking itself, and so forth. So, and we had the issue come up at District 1 meeting last week about the RTD parking and the need for more. So just a little more insight into that piece. On Main Street in LU2B, I'm not sure whether one might necessarily want all, in the future, all residences above things as opposed to potentially having a building that actually has some residences that are on all the stories. But that's just a minor one. LU3, I had a question, 3B, excuse me. It seemed to me we needed to define or rephrase in the third line nearby residents, the impacts such as noise and traffic on nearby residents. What we do know, at least from Hudson Gardens and Platte River Grill and some other places, that nearby is maybe a lot closer than, at least for some people, than other people consider nearby. So maybe something that would let us know how far we're really talking there. On page 15, in LU7, let's see, downtown should support a diverse mix of housing options for residents of all ages, incomes, abilities, and family structures. And what I think every city tends to see is that there are cycles where these things kind of change, where you might tend to have a predominance of one at one time, and then new seeds grow up and, come in or whatever. So I'm just not sure that, that one wants to say you have that total mix, particularly in such a small area. And if you want people with a lot of discretionary income living downtown and spending money, that might not be the exact right mix. I don't know that, but maybe some thinking more on that. On page 17, I wondered if maybe we needed to think about more gateways. In one sense, as Mrs. Bitts talked about, we get people coming, 2-3 miles up from the south, and so the south entrance at Prince, whether it's at church or closer to downtown, but maybe that should be considered a gateway too. And or if we do look at Curtis or Nevada or wherever, whether or not if you have a walking corridor, that also might be considered a gateway. Because a lot of, at least some students at ACC, and where we have 20,000 thereabout, don't really know that downtown's here. So if there's some kind of gateway piece attracting them as they park at ACC or walk from light rail, maybe to attract them. And then LU 13A on that page that some people have already talked about. If you have the adjacent areas, the downtown, adjacent to the downtown gateways, it seems to me what you're really doing is expanding the downtown identity. So I'm not sure how much you want them, those parts to be looking too much like downtown. Page 18. And let's see, I've got a couple. I already mentioned something related to CN4, that's even in winter, so year-round, safe, efficient, inviting the year-round. CN4C, and maybe it's because I walked this area a whole lot, but I wasn't quite sure what's wrong with the pedestrian and bicycle connections over, well, at least the pedestrian over the railroad tracks to the east and across Santa Fe. Well, the across Santa Fe I understand, but not the part east. So maybe you'd clarify for us that piece of it. On page 19, item 4 in the left column, provides an equitable regulatory and or financing structure, etc. And I'm wondering who it's equitable for. Is it for all stakeholders? I mean, who are we talking there? Page 23. And at the end of the first paragraph, where has already been mentioned, every year's revised the plan, but in the chart later, and as we go along, we have some things that have to be reviewed every 12 months, some 24 months, some 36 months, some ongoing. So it seems to me if you do all that stuff, you ought to be pretty on top of it all right along, which would be great. You know, which is the idea to be responsive and not let things slide out of good compliance there. Pages 24 and following, I have a suggestion. I mean, you guys can do what you want. I think this table would work much better turned the other way, so that you could have more columns. You could have headings, and I can show you so you don't have to write it down, but duration could have subheadings of categories, and then you just put a check mark in the appropriate column, and a similar thing for primary responsibilities as a main heading, and then sub-column headings, for one for staff, one for planning commission, one for HPB, and one for city council, and again with check marks. Doing that would allow whichever group it is a really more obvious way to scan down and say, oops, what are we supposed to be doing by the end of this 12 months, you know, and is it us or, whoever it is that's looking. So that was just kind of a usability feature. On page 31, item 5 with the principal vehicular streets and so forth. And we have Prince Street running north-south and connecting across Santa Fe, et cetera, and to the northwest and to Ridge Road, Mineral Avenue on the south. I would suggest you also put in Cayley Avenue. It's not as major, but it does get an awful lot of crosstown traffic. I mean, it's one of the main east-west ones on this side of Santa Fe. Then 36. I'm not sure why we have in D1 the U.S. Post Office. I mean, the U.S. could decide to pull that puppy out of there tomorrow if it wanted. So we can't say, I think, it will remain as much as we'd like. So, just a suggestion about that. I mean, if the government wants to change the character or whatever it is of that, or just totally shut it down. So a little more thinking maybe about that. On page 37, G1, all historic structures will be identified and protected. I think that would be covered by the Historic Preservation Code, so maybe a reference to that, right? This would not be something in addition. It would be, I'm assuming, in consonance with that code, because then that spells out the conditions in which that occurs. And then I think this is the last one. On page 39. The Echo Star site analysis, I had heard some discussion of that, that the people that own that might like to, and I won't say specifically what, might have a significantly different thought in mind. So you might, on the sly, talk to Charlie. That's not on, I'm just teasing with that word. But, you know, I don't think we want to push in a direction that maybe they don't want to go, and maybe they have something in mind that might be even better in concept than this.
Well, the whole intention was to look at the impact of heights and density and what could potentially go in that space, so we get a feel of what development in the downtown area will look like in the future. So, I mean, it was just hypothetical. It wasn't intended to be specific.
Anyway, I'll just stand by my comment, but not as a hostile comment, but thank you. Again, I think you guys did one heck of a job.
Jim?
Thank you.
I, too, will say I think you did a great job on this. It's just I need more time to analyze it than what you gave me. I do have, on page 24 and 25, the implementation charts. I have a great concern about things that are going to be happening in 12 months or 24 months or ongoing, because we have such a limited staff to work with that. And maybe look at some of those times in there and see if they could be spread. You know, we're talking about maybe a 10-year plan here or whatever. Why does everything have to be done in 12 or 24 months? So take a look at that and see about moving that out. And then the other thing, and I don't know how I missed this the first time, which is to me one of the most important aspects of the whole idea, is on page 14, the land use item 1B. When you're talking about that, you're going to review all the existing zone districts, and you're going to come up with something that's going to conform to this plan. To me, that says we're going to rezone everything in the football area. That's what it says to me. And so I just need a better explanation as to what may be meant by 1B.
Debbie has one more thing.
I also do want to say that I think this is an incredible job that you guys, I mean, it's clear there's a great deal of work in here, a great deal of research and study. I see a lot of great input from the community, and it's a giant task, and I think you guys have got it down into a nice compact version for us to pick on. But this is, I think it's a great job. On page 14, LU2A, I would just like to hear your thinking on working with RTD to add retail, office, or residential use to its property.
Okay?
Yeah.
I want to thank you and all the Planning Commission members, and Dennis, and the staff members that sweat this thing out for
3.5 years.
a long time. It was quite an odyssey. I know that you all put in an incredible amount of work and effort and time. We thank you. The community thanks you. I know that you spent a lot of time looking at all sorts of different things. I can remember watching one meeting where you were discussing whether to allow or not to allow aggregation of properties together and what that should do to the heights, and if you did that or didn't do that, how that would potentially affect redevelopment and things. So I know that there's an incredible amount of work that has gone on in order to produce these pages. So thank you. And thank you, Dennis, and all of you. If you'll allow me to go through some pages here. Many of my comments have already been echoed by other people. And sometimes my comments are the opposite of what other council people have said on the same item. For example, on the sunset provision.
Give us page, Doug.
Page 14, LU1C. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that because we have discussed sunsetting in the past. The conclusion that council came to is that you really don't want to do a blanket sunset, and most of the times you don't want to do a sunset at all because it's sunsetting back to a zoning that probably wasn't appropriate at the time that the zoning was applied for. So you may not be happy with the fact that the new zoning isn't getting done in a short period of time, but I'm not sure that that dissatisfaction is going to exceed what would happen if it reverted back to what it was before. So that's my concerns on zoning. Same page, LU2A, same comment as Debbie. I don't know how RTD could fit anything on the properties that they have without impinging on the height restrictions and frankly, degrading the look of downtown. They only have 2 properties downtown. It's the Rio Grande parking lot and the light rail station. So I don't think that that's probably very realistic. LU4, Jim talked about no other land uses. I think I recognize why you guys did this. Is one of the charges that we gave you was to look at the residential that's in downtown, specifically the stuff that's up, I want to say Curtis, but I'm not sure that's the right street, because we had a property owner come and want to change, was that Curtis? Want to change the land use and convert a house into a commercial establishment, and they were right across the border that was established in the comp plan. And one of the charges we gave to you is are those borders correct, and should we allow it to do that? So part of my concern, and I'm on the other side from Jim here, is if we're going to preserve residential, if we really want people to live downtown and we want that section to stay as residential, I don't know that we want to convert any residential to other uses. So if that's the boundary that we want residential to be, then we probably, and I'm going to be on the other side of Jim, we probably want to be more strict rather than less strict. But we can duke it out later.
We'll argue that later.
We'll argue that later. Yeah, 21st. Yes. Next page, LU6. I'd like to hear your thought process on converting the industrial area into multifamily residential. My personal thought process is the more commercial and office that we have in downtown, the better it is. In fact, if you talk to the older folks, and they describe the changes that have happened in downtown, one of the changes is when the courts moved out, that changed what happened in downtown, because all those people that were in downtown during the day and coming and eating lunch no longer did that. When Martin moved its office annex out of what's now the Arapahoe County office annex, that changed, that decreased substantially the number of people that were downtown. So I'm not sure that converting commercial to residential gets us where we want to go if we're trying to preserve a commercial part of downtown. The height map, I'd like to hear your all thought process on the heights. My first inclination is that they're too high, just like Paul. However, I know that you spent a considerable amount of time discussing heights, and so I want to hear what your justification is, what your rationale is for that. Because my inclination is it's exactly like Paul, is you can't preserve the character and feel and massing of downtown if you increase the heights or allow the heights of the buildings to be increased. LU11, this may be a nit, but if we have a policy and goal that relates to being adjacent to iconic structures, we ought to identify what those iconic structures are. And I don't know if that means designated structures, historically designated landmark structures, or if this is a broader category than that.
But they are identified in the plan.
Pardon?
They are identified in the plan.
Oh, I'm sorry, then I
There are
missed
6
that.
of them.
In the framework.
All right. LU12 on page 17. 12A. I have no idea what that says. LU14A, and I'm going to make this on LU14A and ED2 and following, and all the sustainability section. I don't think that belongs in the comprehensive plan.
So it's LU 14A?
Yeah. Continue to work with merchants, associations, and other civic groups to promote downtown cultural arts facilities and events. Then when you're on page 19, when you're talking about policies and implementation strategies for economic development, I mean, I agree that the city's economic gardening program is fantastic and should continue and support new businesses, but the comprehensive plan is really a land use document, and this one specifically for downtown, and its primary purpose is to guide decisions on rezoning for PDOs, conditional use, that sort of stuff. So while this is important stuff to say, putting it into the comprehensive plan, and in my opinion, just makes a comprehensive plan more difficult to read. And I'll make those comments about the appendices too. For instance, Appendix B. Are those predictions of what's going to happen in the future? Or are those actual policies and goals that a future planning commission and a future council should use to decide whether a rezone is appropriate and complies with the comprehensive plan? So, I mean, to generally say that or to restate it is, if it doesn't work, if it's not necessary, if it's not a goal and a policy that we intend to be used by the Planning Commission and the council and developers and the staff to determine what rezones are appropriate, what conditional uses are appropriate, what changes to allow in a PDO, then it shouldn't be in the comprehensive plan, which doesn't necessarily mean the Planning Commission shouldn't tell us about it or that you shouldn't give it to us in a document. It's just that my feeling is adding things to the comprehensive plan that aren't specifically there for the purpose that the plan exists for just confuses everybody. And development is pretty complex already. On page 19 still, and I'm sorry, should I slow down?
No.
Jose talked a little bit about this, and that is, how does a parking reduction relate to historic preservation? If we are going to collect, if we do intend or think we're going to have the need of creating parking structures, then if we exempt the requirement to provide those parking structures, who's going to end up paying for it? And I know the answer. I don't like the answer. Let's see. Oh, on the heights, could I also get, please, from, and you may already have it from the Planning Commission, or perhaps the staff has it, what the existing heights are of the buildings already, and the number of stories, if you know it.
When you say that height, as I recall, the Town Hall Arts Center has a cupola on the top of it. Are you including that as part of the height?
Well, what I'd like you to do is tell me what the heights are as we currently would measure them by our code.
Well, it's facing Main Street primarily.
Well, it's to the midpoint of the roof, I think, so I don't know how you do it if you've
They're
got
mostly flat roofs, so.
They're mostly, so I think they've got provisions for the sticky uppy parts. And I guess that's my that's my main concerns. And once again, I want to say that you all have spent an enormous amount of time. The fact that we have so many comments is an indication of how important we think your work product is and the job that you've done. And, you know, we said when we gave this to you that this was perhaps the most difficult section, most difficult plan in the city. I don't think any of us realized just how difficult it was. I think you do now. But once again, I want to thank you for all the time and effort that all of you on the Planning Commission and Dennis have put into this. That's a monumental effort. Now, I think what we're hoping to do is Jim is going to make a motion to postpone this for 2 weeks, which I believe will be October 18th.
Right.
We would like to add an agenda item to the study session next week to talk about some of these issues. It would be ideal if the Planning Commission can come, although we recognize that this is short notice and you guys have spent like a zillion hours on this already. So maybe you want to send some representatives, however you want to do that.
Mayor?
Yes.
If I can interject. We've contacted and polled, and we've received positive comments from 5 Planning Commission members that can attend next Tuesday.
Fabulous. All right, Jim, you want to make your, you want to say anything before we go on?
No, if you have additional comments, please forward them to us so that we can respond for next week's meeting. So I think, Bruce, you might have had a few more that you wanted to make, or I know, Jim, you had a bunch. So.
I'll probably send them to Glenn and let him forward it to you.
Okay, sounds great.
Since I've got his email address.
Sounds good.
I move that we postpone this, vote on this until October 18th on the downtown neighborhood plan.
Second. Jose? Okay. It's been moved and seconded to postpone the adoption of the resolution ratifying the downtown neighborhood plan.
I'm sorry, Mayor, who seconded?
Jose did.
Thank you.
And the city's comprehensive plan until October 18th.
And I think the only discussion item is the anticipation we will have a vibrant discussion at next Tuesday's study session.
Any other discussion?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Of Linda. Based on all the things that we said and with the joint meeting that we're planning, do you think 2 weeks is going to give adequate time to get this pulled together?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, I think a lot of your comments, we've, we have debated these issues extensively, so I think we can definitely get comments in.
Okay, that's
within a
all right.
reasonable time frame.
Thanks.
Yeah, we wouldn't anticipate having another draft that published. What we would have is something similar to what you got tonight, which is a memo of those changes that we then work with Kelly and Chris to get the final document after that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing there's anything we can comment that we had that you haven't already extensively discussed. Extensively. Okay. Council ready to vote on the motion to postpone the adoption of the resolution to October 18th?
The vote is unanimous. The motion carries.
Okay. And let me find my agenda. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Appreciate
all
you
of
for
you.
coming. Thank you. All right, that brings us to item 9B, which is a discussion of the acting city attorney status.
Excellent. Thank you, Mayor. So let me just preface this by saying it's somewhat of an awkward conversation in a public meeting because there are also obviously some executive session components that can play into this. But in summary, in keeping it in a relatively high level, we have discussed kind of the workload status, the situation with Kirsten and Becky, and worked with Phil as well to discuss again, workload level and kind of how we would handle this, staying out of the question of the future and what the council might want to do relative to a permanent position. But it is our recommendation as staff that the council appoint Kirsten as our acting city attorney. We do have a pay recommendation at some point we can discuss if you like as well. But we think that essentially the way that it would work, and Kirsten's here to answer any specific questions you may have, obviously, but she would take over the Planning Commission, the City Council components of it, continue to review the agendas of the boards and commissions, and those that have potential legal action, quasi-judicial discussions occurring would attend those. Should a project come up that is sufficient or of size of concern relative to workload, we may contract with an outside local attorney that has expertise in municipal land use, whatever that might be. Our discussion really surrounded, I would say, a window of about a 6-month period, and that made some assumptions about what the council might want to do relative to internal or external city attorney. But we made some assumptions around thinking that regardless of the outcome of whether this council wanted to move forward with an action or leave it to the next council, the reality was it would be the next council that ultimately makes that decision. With the holidays coming in, we wanted to make sure that Kirsten was comfortable with that 6-month window, and I believe she is. So that is our recommendation, that you appoint Kirsten for the acting city attorney until such time that a final attorney, internal or external, is appointed. And I'm happy to answer any specific questions. And again, Kirsten is here as well.
Would there be a salary adjustment for that?
There would be, based upon our HR personnel policies, yes. And Eric's got both the background and the detail for you at that time, appropriate time.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Isn't the, Eric? Come on down, please. Isn't the policy to pay actings at the starting salary for the position?
That is correct. Your policy 4.6 states that you either have to bring the person to the minimum of the starting range if they are not yet at the minimum, or if they are already currently within that pay range 5% above their current pay. In this case, it would be a situation where you would need to bring your the individual to the minimum of the pay range.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Eric? Thank you, Eric. All right, Council, what's your druthers?
I move that we appoint Kirsten Crawford as the acting city attorney, and with a salary commensurate with the HR policy at the minimum for the position.
Second.
Give it to Peggy. There you go. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to appoint Kirsten as acting city attorney. And may I rephrase this and say with pay according to the employee policies?
It's fine.
Okay.
Same effect.
Any discussion? All right. Council ready to vote?
The vote is unanimous. The motion carries.
All righty. That brings us to reports. Mr. Brand New City Manager.
Thank you. Thanks. The one item relative to next week's agenda, and there had been a little bit of email discussion on this, was the follow-up items on from the budget workshop, and whether there was an interest in adding that to next week's work session to prioritize those items. And I believe that was emailed out to you
For the study session?
For the study session, or whether now that you have the downtown plan.
I think the downtown plan will pretty much fully occupy us, although aren't we scheduled to meet with
Jim Anderson.
Judge Jim Anderson too?
Yes, yeah, that was the one agenda item, and so this had gone out before we knew that there was going to be the desire of council to add that, but I still wanted to go ahead and ask you. Otherwise, what we'll do is put it on for a subsequent study session when it looks like there's a lighter agenda and get some prioritization from the council. Does that work?
Any objections?
I'm getting high. No, but we'll keep the judge on as the first agenda item. I don't believe that will take long.
All righty.
And I also, Charlie, did we hear on the Inglewood?
Welcome back. Thanks. I'm still on time from 8 hours ago, so it's a little strange. The council in Inglewood is scheduled to meet with the CH2M Hill consulting firm Monday night at 6 o'clock to discuss the disinfection study that Littleton Council authorized some months ago. Unfortunately, the prime consulting presenter, Paul Swaim, is not available on Monday, primarily because Inglewood never confirmed the date with CH as to the meeting. However, Larry Schindler is going to be there, we believe. I got a call late this afternoon, and they say they still plan to have the meeting Monday night, and they're hoping that Larry will be able to make the presentation for the whole study. If you recall, the Littleton Council, Inglewood Council met at the plant several weeks ago, and that is the presentation that's going to be made Monday night if you want to attend. I told Inglewood that there would be some council members there. I'm not sure how many of you plan to attend. I plan to be there. I think Michael is going to join us as well. Unless I hear differently, it's still on for Monday night at 6.
It's Monday, the 10th of October.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a Inglewood study session in the Inglewood City Civic Center Complex building. I think it's on the second floor of that building. If for some reason Larry can't make that meeting, because he's been out of town until today, I will send you an email and let you know whether or not it's what's going to happen. But the Inglewood Council said they intend to go forward with the meeting on Monday. And they want to have the presentation and then be able to ask questions directly of the consultant. As you recall, we paid for all of this. So I insisted that I know as much as possible about what their plan is. Unfortunately, they had a problem in scheduling it with the consultant, and they'll do the best they can. Okay?
Thank you, Charlie. I didn't know you were gone.
Okay, and
ouch.
And we will post it just in case more than 2 of you plan on attending.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
No, Mayor, thank you. I'm pleased to be here.
Ms. Acting City Attorney?
Nothing here.
Nothing. Peggy?
Pleased to be here, too.
Please, no thank you.
Phil?
Just quickly, 2 items to mention. The South Metro Denver Chamber of Commerce had an executive roundtable discussion last week. It was a very vibrant hour and a half. It was very strange to have nearly 30 business leaders in a room together, and everyone had a chance to say something and reach some directions that are pretty exciting. The objective, of course, is business in the South Metro area and how to retain, attract, and expand the best businesses. Secondly, the South Suburban Park and Rec District had its board meeting last Wednesday. I don't have the details, but there are some discussions with the Museum of Outdoor Art and Hudson Gardens with Senator Newell's resolution on conflict resolution, I think they could use some help. It's not going well in their relationship.
Museum of Outdoor Art?
And Hudson Gardens. They're the ones that have done Hudson Holidays in
Right.
the past.
I heard that not going well would have to be an improvement.
Yes, so it's just to let folks know that they may be heading towards a separation agreement.
Well, I thought Hudson Holidays wasn't going to happen.
It's not going to happen this year, but this is even going farther into the future.
Okay. Anything else?
Just another one of those events that really brings a lot of people to Littleton that's gone by the wayside, which is really too bad.
It'll be replaced by Sparks. Anything else, Phil?
Nothing.
Jim?
Thank you.
Yes, the E470 Authority selected an auditor. They're working on an agreement with Commerce City for making a connection from southbound Tower Road to southbound Pena Boulevard. I attended the Sheridan Celebrates along with the mayor, and it's not WWW's Grand Parade Day yet, but it's growing. It's getting a little bigger every year. The Colorado Municipal League Executive Board meeting, we honored retiree Barb Major for 38 years of service. We accepted Michael Perry's resignation from the board. We accepted the financials. We approved participation in a lawsuit which has to do with the Aspen building inspector lawsuit. We wrapped up the board retreat with Kathy Novak. We had membership services update and approved a new CML section, the Colorado Governmental Association of Informational Technologies, Seagate they call it, and a briefing on local elected officials in a leadership position with NLC, and a legislative update. The zombie crawl on Saturday afternoon was well attended. They probably had 200 people in that crawl. They just kept going and going and going and going. It's like the bunny rabbit. So, and looking forward to the tree planting and ribbon cutting on the east side of the trail on October 15th at Dry Creek Road and
Big Dry Creek.
Big Dry Creek and South Platte. Thank you. And mark your calendars for November the 17th. That is District 3's, CML's District 3's annual meeting, and it's going to be in Parker. It's a brand new Parker Arts, Culture, and Events Center. And you'll get more information about that later on, but it is on the 17th of November. Had to wait. It's going to be the last one because they had to wait to get the building completed so they could host it there. There will be a business meeting, a social hour, and a dinner, and sharing of information among the attendees. I happen to be vice chair of that district, by the way. So I'll give Marlene the info, and she can follow up with council.
And Mayor, before you move on, if I can just emphasize this Aspen case potentially has huge ramifications. I'm not sure how much you guys are aware of it, but from an inspection standpoint and everything from the rental to building, potentially putting the individual in a criminal liability situation has major implications statewide. So we are following it very closely, and I think it was a good decision by the CML board to join in the amicus brief and actually the lawsuit itself. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
Anything else?
No.
Jose?
Don't forget that IFTF, Interfaith Task Force, Community Services will be needing a lot of clothes and donations for the Christmas season, and they always need a lot of clothing in their clothing bank. Town Hall Arts Center is doing well. They've reopened now, and their plays are doing well. The Greater Littleton Youth Initiative has restarted since school started, so it's doing well. They're still working hard on the suicide prevention. Littleton Big Australia Exchange is alive and well. As you know, they were here to present us with a plaque. And for those that don't know Littleton Big Exchange, this was started 50 years ago, and we are the first of all of the exchanges in Australia. So when you go there and you see that long list, Littleton's right on the top. And you're treated well if you go over there. Thank you.
Debbie.
The museum is extending two of their exhibits. The Pivotal Points and the Onan Original are both being extended until November 6th. So if you haven't had a chance to go see either of those, you have additional opportunity. And that's it.
Bruce.
Oh, thanks.
Got the stopwatch.
Okay, this is actually going to go quick. I attended the Littleton Fire Protection District Board meeting on the 26th. Minimal conversation about the Fire Partners contract, which is, in fact, continues to be negotiated, and I think generally we're making some progress on it. There was an interesting set of conversations regarding the replacement of Medic 13 and Engine 11. I threw out a creative financing alternative, which went upside down in the ditch, crashed and burned, but it's okay because we were talking about fire and they were able to take care of business, straight up. Actually, it had to do with trying to get the district to finance the whole cost of the equipment, which at a lower rate than what we would pay to lease it, but there was heartburn on their side, so I think we're just going forward with the leasing arrangement according to Finance Director Farman. And, of course, at some point, all annoying activities become tradition, and I'm sure that's where we are with the ever-popular, often imitated, never duplicated, always loved and hated Merchant Plug of the Week, which this week goes to the 5th anniversary celebration of Lido Wine Merchants at the corner of Nevada and Main Street. According to Tina, we attribute our success to you, and we thank you for your patronage. They actually is a bit dated. They had a big sale and celebration that ran through Monday, the 26th of September. But this has been a group that's really done a terrific job downtown. It's an outstanding wine shop with a wealth of knowledge and expertise in all things having to do with wine. So their hours are Monday through Saturday, 10 through 7. They're closed on Sunday, but the phone is 303-798-0122. Give them a call or stop by. You won't be disappointed.
Bruce, was that specifically you that was credited with the success?
No, the broader you. I was speaking, broadly.
We all misinterpreted that.
Second person plural.
Well, I mean, usually it's somebody you've been patronizing, and like with the paint folks and whatever, so.
I wish I could patronize them more than I do. Yes, no, it was definitely the community. I think they've had a great response throughout the community for all the right reasons.
And Mr. Mayor, I forgot to ask Kelly something. I think I didn't hear back on this. When the new council is installed, do you have copies of Kathy Novak's, the summary of her working with council and staff a couple of years ago? Because I thought they might want to have that.
I'm sorry, I thought I emailed that to you and asked what you want to do with it. I have the copies electronically.
Okay, so you
and
have
hard
those.
copies.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
Well, I mean, I was suggesting, I had asked Jim about this, Jim Woods, and I had thought that it would be good for whoever's elected to have copies of that presentation with us.
I think we should note for the record that the stopwatch says 2 minutes and 9 seconds, which is
That's a record.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
That's a record.
Yeah.
I wasn't even talking that fast.
I know. I'm going to keep this.
Dr. Cog?
Are you going to time my Dr. Cog reports too?
Yeah, go for it.
Dr. the Administrative Committee approved contracts with media vendors. We adopted the fund balance policies and agreed to end the elevator inspection program, and I've been having conversations with Jim Thielen about that here in the city and how it's going to affect us. The Board of Directors approved minutes, a number of resolutions, and had presentation on the Lowry Range, had updates on the new land use model, the Front Range travel counts and mileage-based user fee, and the planning grant. The Sustainable Communities Regional Planning Grant had 66 entities that signed on board with resolutions of support, about 80% of the population, and more than $7 million in matching grant funds to help jumpstart the grant if it's approved. It's due on Friday, and we applied for slightly less than $5 million. $5 million was the maximum amount you could apply for. Okay, Debbie.
52 seconds.
Ooh,
Making me look
very good.
Under a minute.
All right, Debbie.
Without effort.
I move that we conduct an executive session pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-402, Prin 4, Prin E, for determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to go into executive session. This takes 5 votes. Discussion?
The vote is 6 in favor, with Councilmember Trujillo voting no. The motion carries.
Consistency.
There you go.
All right, let's take
Anything
a
to add tonight,
7-minute
Paul?
break. And
Get 'em
I'm
where
assuming that we're going to be in the conference room.
Who else, did we say who's in?